let's say somebody has to give the big speech at the conference or at the meeting or something, and they're not confident about it. Well, you're confident in a great many things. You're confident that you can tie your shoes. You're confident you can walk down the street. You're confident you can ride maybe a bicycle or something like that. Zip up a jacket, button your shirt. You're confident in a great many things. Where do you feel that in your body? And I'll just link that feeling of confidence to giving that speech and then practice that. Even if you don't believe it, even if you have to pretend, it'll literally wire your brain. Now, part of the issue is if I hand you a glass of water, Lisa, and put a teaspoon of dirt in there, and then put 2 teaspoons of sugar, it's still a glass full of dirt,
Still muddy water.
Yeah, if you want to remove the dirt and things, but there are ways of improving your life.
Hello and welcome back to Healing and Growing Hand in Hand podcast. I'm your host, Lisa Tickel, and our guest today is Craig Meriwether. He is a certified clinical hypnotherapist, and I'll let him explain more about that. But I don't know if I really want to get into what we're going to kind of talk about, but I guess why don't we start with letting you kind of introduce yourself, and then I don't want to give away the goods yet of what we're going to talk about. So why don't you go ahead and explain about you?
Well, yeah. I like coming on to shows like yours, Lisa. And first, thank you for the invitation. I've been looking forward to this for a while because I appreciate what you talk about, the vulnerability that you offer to people, because this is tough stuff. There's a lot of hurt and pain people are dealing with, and why I like coming on this show, because there's a lot of misconceptions. And we'll get into a lot of that probably with our time together here. But there's a lot of misconceptions, a lot of myths, and it's unfortunate because this is such an extraordinary healing modality. And like a lot of people in the healing realms, whether you're a talk therapist or EDMR or any of these kind of healing modalities, I became a hypnotherapist because it helped me. I was struggling a lot in my teenage years with depression and anxiety, and this is in the 1980s. So not only is there no internet, they don't even have the medications. The Prozacs and the SSRI drugs, those aren't coming out till the late 1990s. So there wasn't much going on other than talk therapy and whatever book you could find at the bookstore or the library. And of course, a teenager, you're probably not going to do either.
Right.
And I really just lived with it like an uncomfortable coat. Ooh. And because you don't know any better.
Right. Right.
How do you explain color to a blind person? Yeah. It's just like, I guess is the way it is. I guess this is how everybody feels.
Yeah.
And, I saw my mom struggle with depression and anxiety. We even talked about it, and whether it's a genetic thing or mirroring what I saw in the home, I was struggling with it too. And it was really the birth of my son, or, when my wife, told me she was pregnant, I was like, okay, I really got to get my life together, because I just settled into it. Yeah. I'm just like, I guess this is the way it's going to be. Why would I think it to be different?
Right.
And I really got a jolt of, some people call that coming to Jesus moment, where it's just like, okay, I got to get it together. Yeah. If nothing else, for the sake of my son, because again, whether it's genetic or, a nature or nurture thing, there's a good chance he's going to struggle with it, whether his genes get triggered or he's watching me or his grandmother or whatever. Right. So what if there are tools out there? And this is 2001, so the internet's out there. Of course, there's so much more information and books and research. And so I just
education.
Kind of diving in. And, of course, there's life and there's work and there's a baby on the way. And so it was a little bit of off and on and a trial and error on what was working for me. But one of the things I tried was hypnotherapy, because I'd read these books or the articles or the blog posts, and they always have these bullet points that so if you really want to change your life, try this, 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 and this. And they'd usually be different except for one. There was always a constant. It was always hypnotherapy. If you want to change your life, do hypnotherapy. I thought, well, every single book and article and blog post and whatever is saying hypnotherapy will work. I thought, okay, well, let's try this. And I did, it really helped me. And I, like a lot of people, you you get excited about it. You say, my God, this is helpful. Why doesn't everybody know about this?
Yeah.
And so I talk about, and I wrote a book called Depression 180. This is like 2010. And I tried to do telesummits. Back then it was telesummits, and podcasts were just starting, and radio, and talk about it. But really there was always this gnawing, I guess, at me. I was like, God, it would be great if you could do this work, become a hypnotherapist. And at point, my son was getting older and not needing as much attention from mom and dad, I guess, or became an opportunity to study and train to become a hypnotherapist. And I went to an extraordinary school, the Hypnotherapy Academy of America, and the premier institutes for hypnotherapy training in America. People come from all over the world to come to this school. And it's 500 hours. It's,
wow.
What was that? 10 weeks. It was 2.5 months, Monday through Friday, 9 a.m. to 6 p.m. This isn't a university class where it's, Tuesdays and Thursdays afternoon from 1 to 2. This is 9 a.m. to 6 p.m. Monday through Friday, 500 hours of training over the course of 2.5 months. And it's extraordinary. I mean, a lot of people just got to be really careful when you're, researching and doing your due diligence to make sure that people you're working with have some good education. Because sometimes people just have like this 20-hour course that they took over the weekend over video.
Yeah.
Never even worked with anybody. So it's extraordinary healing and extraordinary modalities. And I've been working with people for so many years, because what I like about this is, a lot of people say, well, I don't want to lose control, and I want to give up secrets, and I don't want to be hypnotized. Well, the thing is, you're already hypnotized. If you're struggling with being triggered with some unknown environmental cue to create anxiety or panic or fear or anger, you're already hypnotized.
Why is that?
Changing. Well, because I think mainly it's a safety protocol your subconscious mind has created to protect you, to keep you safe, and to armor you. Oh, and the feeling states of anxiety, the feeling state of anger, the feeling state of fear, it's a warning signal that there's danger. So if somebody pulls a fire alarm in a building, the sirens are going to go off, the strobe lights are going off, warning everybody that there's danger, you need to get to safety. Well, we also have a warning system. So when your subconscious mind picks up some sort of threat in your external environment, whether real or imagined, whether you know about it or not, whether it's conscious or unconscious, it's going to warn you that there's danger. And that warning signal is the feeling state within your body. Your mind is trying to get your attention by turning up the volume on anxiety or anger or fear or overwhelming worry. And if we listen to it, then we can keep ourselves safe, keep ourselves protected. But sometimes if we're not listening or we're ignoring it, the volume gets turned up. And one of the big issues around the trauma and the hurt and the pain and the anxiety that we're feeling, or the anger or the fear that we're feeling, is that what you practice, you get better at.
Oh, yes, so true.
And of course, we know that if you've ever learned a musical instrument, you learned how to play guitar, violin, or piano, or you've learned dance, or you've learned martial arts, you don't get a black belt on your first day of martial arts class.
True.
You have to practice to get to that level where the moves are automatic. We know this from learning a foreign language, or even as a kid learning to walk. What you practice, you get better at. So what if you're practicing anxiety? What if you're practicing fear? Are you literally not just wiring that into your brain so that as you get older, you just get better and better at it? It becomes quicker and more automatic. So in a sense, you've hypnotized yourself to react in a certain way. I mean, the amount of effort it takes for your body to switch from the parasympathetic nervous system, the relaxation response, over to the sympathetic stress response, fight or flight response, is pretty extraordinary, because your brain has to start creating that adrenaline and that cortisol. You probably, Lisa, and a lot of your listeners have heard of those crazy stories of the grandmothers lifting babies off of cars and things.
Oh, yeah.
Adrenaline doing that. That's not coursing through your body. Your brain is creating these neuropeptides, these molecules that create the feeling state in your body, the feeling state of fear, of anger, of joy, of happiness. But these are literal molecules of fear, molecules of anxiety. They're hundreds of millions coursing through your body. Your your body's now moving 300% more blood to the big muscles of your arms to fight, 300% more blood to the big muscles of your legs to escape. That's got to come from somewhere. So it's turning down the power on your immune system, on your digestive system. This is why people get sick when they're stressed. This is why people create irritable bowel syndrome. Irritable bowel syndrome is mostly hypervigilance and stress. And so the amount of effort it takes to switch over into the fight or flight stress response is extraordinary. And you're doing that automatically without even maybe understanding why it's happening. You're already hypnotized. And more than likely, you're using the instructions that you set up as a child.
Yes.
And maybe the best thing for you to do as a child was to keep yourself small, to hide. Maybe that was the best thing you could have done as a child to keep yourself safe and protected in a home that was abusive, or a situation at school, or whatever the situation was. The best thing as a child you could have done is make yourself small, hide your light, hide. But that's not going to work when you're an adult.
Yeah.
But if you haven't changed the instructions, why would anything change?
Right.
It's computer code. If you're creating accounting software for your business and you put in there 2 + 2 = 5. Well, it doesn't matter how much you type on your keyboard or slam the keyboard with your fist out of frustration, or go talk to your friend and vent about how frustrating it is that your computer program is telling you 2 + 2 = 5, or take a Sharpie, take a marker and write on your computer screen 2 + 2 = 4. It's not until you go into that computer code, find the issue, there's, 2 + well, that's weird. And then you can amend it, erase it, edit it, whatever you need to do, and then write in 2 + 2 = 4, press save, and now your equations equal out. And that's what therapeutic hypnosis helps you do. I'm not here to fix anybody. And hypnotherapy in itself doesn't fix anybody. You fix yourself.
Right.
What Dr. Irving Kirsch he defines hypnotherapy as a non-deceptive placebo. And, I'm sure, Lisa, you and most of your listeners have heard of the placebo effect. Whenever there's any sort of research going on, let's say a pharmaceutical company is doing research on high blood pressure medication, they have to have the control group who is taking the sugar pill, taking the fake medicine, because they know mind will heal the body. They have to literally account for that in their research. And so they're tricking you into healing yourself. Here's the pill. It looks exactly like the real medication, only there's no healing value in it. There's no healing potential in it, because they're trying to trick you into healing yourself. So if they're doing this high blood pressure medication trial, 30% of the people in the getting the sugar pill get better. That means 30% are healing themselves through mind. So let's say 40% that are getting the real medication get better. Well, they have to subtract 30% now, because maybe they're getting healed through their own mind as well. So really only 10% got better. And that's good enough for them. They'll put it on the market at $50 a pill. But nobody's showing anybody how to. Well, yeah, but more people got better through mind than taking that actual medication. But there's no huge $1 billion windfall in showing people how to. You can't patent somebody's mind. You can't copyright somebody's subconscious mind or healing potential. So it's like, but we can make a pill, and insurance will cover that.
Yeah.
And so it gets frustrating, because you have the ability to do this. Everybody does. And as we were talking before you hit the record button, it's like there's a lot of misconceptions. And again, it's frustrating because there's this perception that you lose control. Well, I don't know. It sounds like to me you're already out of control.
That's a good point.
Not to kick people in the stomach, but it's just like,
true.
Are you not literally subconsciously, without your awareness, creating this physical response of stress and anxiety and overwhelm and fear to maybe something you're not even aware of why it's happening? And so it's sort of like if somebody's working they're at their job, and let's say they're the head of the marketing department, they're in their office, and next door, Bill and Fred, the two accountants, do their arguing bit. Oh my God, they're arguing again. And their raised voices are happening because the numbers aren't adding up. And as you're hearing this through the walls of your office, you have nothing to do with the accounting department, you're marketing. And everybody else is kind of rolling their eyes. Oh, here's Bill and Fred once again arguing about the end of the month numbers, and they're chuckling and just having a good time about it. You're feeling really fearful and intense and small because maybe there's raised voices in your home growing up.
Yep.
And this is a cue, a trigger. It's like, oh my God, there's raised voices. They're going to be throwing things, and I need to hide. I need to make myself. You're an adult. You know Bill and Fred. They're the two idiots who argue at the end of every month because they can't get along together. It has nothing to do with you.
Mm-hmm.
But that arguing is triggering a response to protect you. Because you're somewhere in your subconscious mind, there's a protocol, like when there are raised voices, that is dangerous. And probably was dangerous when you were a kid. And again, the best thing you probably could have done to keep yourself safe in a very extraordinarily unsafe situation was to hide or make yourself small or go to the neighbor's house or whatever, be quiet. But now you're an adult and you know that situation has nothing to do with you. It's just Bill and Fred. But to you, the way you keep yourself safe is to feel that fear. And even though it has nothing to do with you, you're being triggered unconsciously. Mm-hmm. And so you asked me before, what does that mean? You've hypnotized yourself. It's like, well, you've just hypnotized not just, but over time, through trying to keep yourself safe and protected, using the instructions maybe set up by a child who is hurting, unconsciously, you have hypnotized yourself. When you hear raised voices, maybe even the supermarket or a restaurant or a bar or something, you react unconsciously to literally change your physiology. And so if you can do that, why not do that on purpose? A non-deceptive placebo. Why don't you use mind to help heal yourself? And the best way to do that is therapeutic hypnosis. This is not talk therapy. What I find when people come to, because we're usually last on the list of when people are seeking help, we're usually last on the list because of those misconceptions and mess. And finally, it's just you have no more hope. This is it. And you've done the years and years of talk therapy. You've done all the other kind of modalities, and you're still hurt. You're still hurting. You're still in pain. If somebody's saying, "Well, I try hypnotherapy," it's like, fine, I'll do it. I'm hurting so much. I'll even do this weird thing of hypnotherapy. And not to say it's that easy or that simple, but it's you healing you. And I think with a lot of these other modalities, to say, not to put talk therapists on blast, or throw them under the bus, but I think a lot of people go to a talk therapist because they want them to heal them. They want them to tell them what is wrong because they don't know. It's all unconscious. I don't remember. I don't know what it is. I don't know why I feel like this. Please tell me what is wrong with me and tell me how to fix it. And then you're there for 2-3 years, 80, 90, 100 sessions, and you're still hurting. You know what the problem is. And even if that's not conscious, it's within your subconscious. Because again, that's a lot of effort to move you into the stress response or into fear, or into anger. That's a lot of change within your brain and your body. You know why you're doing it, maybe not consciously. And that's where I think people get tripped up in talk therapy. You're talking about issues that are not the core issue. But you know what the core issue is, even if it happened decades ago, because that's what your subconscious mind is trying to protect you from. Your subconscious mind is for you. It may not seem like that sometimes. But your subconscious mind is 100% for you, but it's for your survival, your protection, your safety. Not necessarily your happiness and your success.
Exactly.
So it knows why it's doing it. And if you know through the placebo effect that mind can heal itself and the emotions and the body, why not do that? And I think what also trips people up is because of people's stories. Well, it took 2 years of talk therapy and we did. It's like they don't understand that people heal in an instant. Now let me put an asterisk next to that. There may be some setup or some lead up to that change, but change happens in an instant. Just like that trauma or that fear or that anxiety or that panic, just as that trauma was installed in an instant due to what maybe was going on in the home or at school or somewhere, that car accident, just as trauma can be installed in an instant, why wouldn't you be able to heal it in an instant? I mean, who told you that you couldn't? And what is it to their benefit that it takes you years to heal? And so, what's extraordinary about this modality is what the problem is. And more importantly, you know what the answer is. You know what to do about it. Maybe not consciously, but that's why we quiet down that conscious level of mind. Your subconscious mind, yes, it's running your immune system, running your digestive system, it's beating your heart. We don't have to think about these things, which is great. It's also holding on to those habits of like tying your shoes and walking down the street and riding a bicycle and all those things. It's holding on to all of those, but it's also holding on to the hurt and the pain and the trauma and the fear because it doesn't want to experience it again. It's armoring you because again, its main job, its main task is your survival, your safety, and your protection. And so it has this kind of filing cabinet within the subconscious mind of all these files. And when there's hurt and pain and wounding and trauma, whether it happened yesterday, last month, or 50 years ago, it's putting that into that filing cabinet. So it's there. Now, and if anything in your external environment, whether it's Bill and Fred in the next door office or something in traffic as you're driving home or something at the supermarket or something a family member says to you, if anything, your external environment triggers one of those files, you'll get the warning signal. Again, the warning signal, not lights and sirens like a fire alarm, but anxiety, stress, anger. You may not know what it is.
Yeah.
What the trigger was. All of a sudden, you just feel really anxious, maybe even sweaty or clammy, or your stomach's upset. And it's trying to warn you there's danger. Now, it's a very highly emotionalized way of trying to keep you safe and protected, but that's the way the unconscious part of your mind works. The conscious mind, that's your logical mind, your analytical mind, that mind that creates your goals and the plans to achieve those goals and the willpower to get up early, to go to the gym before work and all that stuff. That's the conscious mind. But what neuroscience, what the neurobiologists tell us is that conscious mind only makes up 5% of mind. Subconscious mind is 95% of mind. So whenever there's conflict between the logical mind and the emotional mind wins every time.
Yep.
That's why when you get into these situations where you're trying to analyze logically what you're going through, what you're doing, well, no wonder you're there for, 6 months, 8 months, 2 years, 4 years. You're still talking about the same thing. The problem does not reside within the conscious level of mind. It's all within the unconscious. And how do you talk about something logically, analytically with the conscious mind if it's in the unconscious? And so with therapeutic hypnosis, just by relaxing the mind and body for a bit, you can bypass that conscious level of mind, just quiet it down for a little bit and access that doorway into the subconscious. And sometimes I tell you, it's just as easy to ask, what is the problem? Where does this hurt come from? When was the first time you ever felt that you were not worthy? Where's the first time you ever felt you didn't matter in life? Where's the first time you ever felt this fear? Your subconscious mind knows because it's holding on.
Yeah, it's got the record.
And so that, again, that's where healing happens. Healing happens within an instant. Again, there may be some, maybe there's 50 years of lead up to that healing when you finally said, I've had enough. I've had enough of holding on to this armor and protecting myself in this way. It's time to change it. Great, let's change it then. And so that's why with hypnotherapy, generally what I tell people, typically I'm working with people 3 or 4 times. Yeah, sometimes I work with people 1 time and that's all we needed to do. Sometimes it's 8 times. But this isn't some ongoing issue around, week after week talking about the same thing over and over again. Because I don't know what's wrong with you.
Yeah.
But you do.
Yeah, I'm just going to help you pull it out.
Yeah. And this isn't like we're going to create amnesia either. You want to keep the wisdom and the knowledge. It's not like we're going to wipey your memory or something.
Yeah.
You want to keep the wisdom and the knowledge and the understanding and the learning, positive or negative, from that situation or circumstance. We want to remember a hot pot will burn our hand on a stove. You just don't want to keep the pain anymore, right? You want to remember that, it's like something very obvious, driving drunk is going to get you in a lot of trouble. Okay, you want to remember that. You want to wipe that from memory. So we want to keep these things that will keep us safe, but just How about letting go of the hurt and the pain? Again, that's just computer code.
Right.
So let's change the computer. You're the one who, and this can sound harsh, and I don't mean it to sound harsh, but that trauma you installed, that hurt and that pain you're feeling, that anxiety or that fear, you did that. And again, I don't want that to sound harsh or sound like I'm blaming the victim or saying it was your fault. It was not your fault.
It was just the way you coped with it.
Yeah, this is even if this happened as a child unconsciously through a very traumatic experience, you're the one who installed those instructions. The reason I say this is because that becomes very empowering.
Yes.
Because if you're the one who did that, then you're the one who can change it.
Exactly.
Not me, not you, Lisa, not anybody else, not anybody. You can do this.
Right.
And there are times when you want to look outside of yourself for healing. Massage therapist. My God, I love getting a massage. Or, if I break my leg, if I'm in a car accident, take me to the emergency room. If my appendix is about to burst, don't take me to a hypnotherapist.
Yeah.
Take me to the emergency room.
Right.
But if there's some hurt and pain, even some physical issues, yes, can be helped through hypnotherapy. Not just because I'm saying so or because I have anecdotal evidence. The research is out there. Mm-hmm. There was a research study that was just done whenever people are hearing this, but in 2023, a research study came out, and I believe it was in Frontiers of Psychology. But I'll send a link to you, Lisa, and you can put it up on the show notes. But Frontiers in Psychology, that journal, did a meta-study, 20-year research meta-study, meaning they didn't do the actual research. They looked at other people's work. They looked at other people's research, 20 years worth of research into hypnotherapy, and found that there is a 99.2% efficacy rate, meaning it worked. And again, this isn't one study. This isn't two studies. This is decades, 20 years worth of research into hypnotherapy, and putting it all together, they found this stuff works. Again, not because I'm fixing anybody, not because of some weird voodoo, zombifying hypnosis trance state. It's because, like Dr. Irving Kirsch says, it's a non-deceptive placebo. You're going to fix yourself. And it works for so many things, not even healing. Harvard did a study with broken legs, people with similarly broken legs, casts on their legs, using hypnotherapy, found that using hypnotherapy healed the broken leg 40% faster. Whoa. So people with hypnotherapy got their casts off in 5 weeks, and the people not using hypnotherapy got their casts off in 8 weeks.
Wow.
Okay, they still had to have a cast on their leg. They still had to go get x-rays and have a doctor check them out and all that. But by using mind, they healed faster, right? Because that's the healing potential you have within your powerful subconscious mind. It gets a placebo effect. And it hurts, it's just physical things, or irritable bowel syndrome.
Yeah. Tons
of research over the last 30 years or so, because most of irritable bowel syndrome, IBS, is caused by hypervigilance, stress, and anxiety.
Ooh.
What's the cure for that? Well, moving your nervous system out of the sympathetic and back over the parasympathetic. One of the great ways to do that, hypnotherapy. And so tons of research showing that hypnotherapy will not just deal with some of the symptoms, will cure irritable bowel syndrome. Ooh. And not that hypnotherapy is doing it, but you are turning off the stress response. And so all that energy can go back to your digestive system. It will fix itself. Placebo effect. There is, and then I'll take a breath.
It's fascinating.
Give your show back to you. But because I get so excited about this because it's extraordinary what you are able to do. And I mentioned Dr. Irving Kirsch a few times, and in the early 2000s, he wrote some books about Prozac and a lot of the SSRI drugs, selective serotonin reuptake inhibitors. And part of his research is he got some unpublished research from the pharmaceutical companies. Now, there is no law that says you have to publish your research. There is no law that says you have to show the public what you've studied and what your research says. But some of that research was funded by the National Institutes of Health. That's a government agency. So you have to give the government your research to put in their big, Raiders of the Lost Ark warehouse.
Yeah.
And so it's there. It's owned by the government. The taxpayers pay for it, so it's theirs. They don't have to publish it, but they can't destroy it either. And Dr. Irving Kirsch got a Freedom of Information Act to look at this research. One of the research studies, just one, not all of them, but one research study showed that 90% of the control group healed their chronic depression. Now this isn't Monday morning blues because you got to go back to work, or your team lost the game on Sunday, or your favorite TV show is over and concluded. This is chronic depression of years. 90% healed themselves because they were tricked into thinking they were getting an antidepressant. So their body and mind and brain healed itself. 90%. So what are you capable of?
Yeah.
And that's a lot of a thing. Again, there's the hypnosis. A lot of this work is dehypnotizing people from the belief that maybe they can't heal themselves, or they need to seek outside help. And sometimes that's very useful and helpful, especially when your appendix is about to burst or you've been in a car accident. But in terms of the trauma, you can't imagine how powerful you are.
Yeah.
And just tricking people into healing themselves is possible. What if you told them you're there to heal, and we're going to use your intention to want to heal to empower you even more? Because a lot of this work is just your intention. Again, I can't control anybody. I can't make anybody do anything they don't want to do. That's why smoking cessation is not 100% guarantee, because if the person doesn't want to quit smoking, they're not going to quit smoking. So that's why I can't go into Las Vegas casinos and bars and whatnot and wavy, snappy, make everybody quit smoking, because they may not want to quit smoking. I can't go into prison and hypnotize everybody to be upstanding, law-abiding citizens. I can't go to the leaders of the world and create world peace. I cannot get Elon Musk. I can't hypnotize Elon Musk to write me $1 billion check. The reason why I don't have $1 billion check from Elon Musk is because he doesn't want to write me one.
Right.
So if you come to me and you want to quit smoking, you're going to quit smoking because that's what your intention is, to quit smoking. But I then can't add in, and now you're going to go rob a bank later this afternoon, and we're going to split the loot. Or now you're going to go assassinate the prime minister like Jason Bourne or something. That's not the way this works. It's your intention. And I think a lot of people get tripped up.
Yeah.
Because they see the shows. They see the Las Vegas shows or the comedy club shows or the YouTube videos of those shows. And please understand that while entertaining and funny and weird and strange, please understand that every single person up on that stage volunteered to be up there. They want to be up there. Why? I don't know. I don't want to be up there. I'm sure, Lisa, you don't want to be up there. But probably most of the people watching and listening don't want to do that kind of stuff. But there are people up there, and they sing like Elvis Presley. They dance like Michael Jackson. They bark like dogs and cluck like chickens and all that kind of thing. Pretend they're on a roller coaster. Why? Because they want to. Okay. They're extroverts. They're exhibitionists. They want to entertain. They want a funny video to put on Instagram or TikTok. They want to act silly in front of their friends. They just want to have a good time.
Yeah.
Now, remember, everybody who goes to one of those shows paid for their ticket, sat down in their seat, and a bunch of them raised their hands or jumped up and down and waved their hands to volunteer to go up on that stage. And so what's their intention? Their intention is to entertain. Their intention is to have fun. And look at them afterwards. Big smile on their face. Why? Because they had the time of their life.
Yeah.
And people some of those Las Vegas shows, those are like $80.
Yeah.
We're not talking Elton John or Celine Dion money, but it's like, some of those, hypnotist shows and comedy club shows are like $80. So the hypnotist has to put on a good show. They're not going to pull somebody up there who doesn't want to be there.
That's true.
Doesn't want to do it, or is trying to trick the hypnotist. I'll show you. You can't help me. That's not going to make for a good show. So they're going to be off if they do trick them into getting up on stage, they're going to be off stage pretty quick.
Because those are the ones that, because I've been to a few of those, and it's the people that can't get hypnotized are the ones that are messing with them, or the ones that don't have the intention.
Yeah, who don't want to do it.
Yeah,
and there'll be little exercises to weed out the people who can't or don't want to. Now, it's not that they can't; it's just that they don't want to. And like they'll maybe do something with the whole audience, and who who felt that they went deep and wants to come up on stage, bring up on stage, and they'll start doing a little exercise like, I want everybody to close their hands and put their hands together in their prayer position and pretend they're pulling their hands apart, but they can't because they're glued shut. And it's super glued shut, and you try, and everybody's trying to pull their hands apart, and they can't, except that one person that goes like this, and he pulls their hands apart. They're off the stage. They're not going to be a good candidate for the show.
Yeah.
And this person the hypnotist has to put on a good show. Mm-hmm. And so they're going to weed out everybody who's trying to trick them or not do it. And in terms of like not being able to be hypnotized, it's not a thing of like you can or you can't. It's do you want to or not want to? Because really all it is brainwave state. And we're being influenced all the time.
True.
You know, wine tastes better poured from a heavier bottle. Medication works better if it's expensive and is branded. It works better if it's oval shaped, and the best colors to use are pink and green. Blue works best as a tranquilizer, except for in Italian men. And the reason why they think blue tranquilizers works for everybody in the entire world except Italian men is because one of the soccer teams, one of the football teams, is called the Azure. And Azure means blue in Italian.
Gosh.
And so all their jerseys, all the flags, all the banners, all the, decorative cups and everything are blue. And so it hypes them up because it's their soccer team, it's their football team. And so blue does not work with Italian men. And so it's just you're being There's ways of influencing you all the time, and it's happening. There was a extraordinary research study that these researchers hired actors to go into a park. I don't know if it's Central Park, but one of these big, huge parks where people are just hanging out and sitting on benches and things like that. And what these actors would do, they were holding a cup of coffee, and they'd come up and sit on the bench, and they'd turn to the person and say, "Hey, can you hold my coffee for a minute? I got to text my mom or something." And so, "Oh yeah, I'll hold your coffee." And they'd fish out their phone, text, and they're, "Okay, thanks," grab their coffee and walk off. Half the people held hot coffee. The other half held iced coffee. About a half an hour later, a researcher would come up with a clipboard without referencing the coffee or anything, just come randomly, seemed like it was random. It's like, "Hey, I want to ask you a couple questions. Here's a $20 bill. If you read these 3 paragraphs and answer 2 questions, you can have this $20. It'll take you about 2 minutes." And most of the people did it. And the questions referred to the main character in the paragraphs of the story, the 3 paragraphs. And it was about the character traits and the attributes of the character. The people who held the iced coffee, 81% of them felt that the main character was cold and not very welcoming and closed off. The people who held the hot coffee, 80% of them felt that the person was warm and engaging. It's the same story, the same 3 paragraphs. You think that your perceptions are your own and you're not being influenced by everything. And that's just, holding either iced coffee or a warm coffee. So if you're doing a meeting and you want people to like you, serve them hot beverage before. Serve them coffee, serve them tea, serve them hot cider. They will find you more warm and engaging. And so we're all hypnotized. We're all being influenced in this way all the time. Marketers know that. Commercials know that. The news certainly knows that. Politicians certainly know that. And so, again, it's not that hypnotherapists are the one doing it. We're the only ones doing it that are telling you we're doing it and giving you back control. And again, most of the work is de-hypnotizing you. Aren't you already hypnotized if you're literally creating that physical response to a trigger you're not even aware of? You're already hypnotized. And so it's not that you can't do it. You obviously can. It's not that you can't heal yourself with your mind. Of course you can. It's a placebo effect. So, everybody can do it. And we could do this work with your eyes open in a crowded airport under fluorescent lights. It's nicer if it's, in a comfortable office or over in your home if we're doing it over Zoom, which works really well too, because you feel comfortable and safe and relaxed in your home. In fact, there's some research that shows Zoom sessions work better than in person.
Interesting. Because of that. Yeah, that makes sense.
And if you live in a big city, you don't have to drive across town on a Friday afternoon, to get your appointment on time. But in terms of can you or can you not be hypnotized, it's really just brainwave state to move into that state of quote unquote hypnosis. And the famous brainwave states we learned about in school were beta, alpha, theta, and delta. Beta, being consciousness, and it's literally just how fast your brain cells are firing together. And so whenever, you walk down the street, or I wave my hands around to talk, or you think a thought or feel an emotion, you're firing brain cells, and it moves in a wave like fashion from back to front to back again. That's one wave. And in consciousness, in the beta brainwave state, we're firing somewhere around 18 to 20 cycles per second.
Whoa.
But when you move into a more daydreamy state, or like you're kind of watching TV, and so you're there, but not really there, or you zone out, or like you're, back in high school math class, and you just kind of start staring out the window because it's boring, and you're thinking about the weekend and how much fun you're going to have. You've just slowed down your brainwave state and moved down into the alpha brainwave state, firing about 14, 13, 12 cycles per second. And then you start doing one of these, and your head starts nodding down, you're falling asleep. You're not really asleep, but you're not really awake either. Now you're in the delta brainwave state, firing about 6 cycles per second. You may fall asleep. That's 1/2 cycle per second. Or let's say you're back in high school math class. I'm back in high school math class, and teacher sees me falling asleep. I was staring out the window thinking about how much fun I'm going to have this weekend, and then I start falling asleep. I'm moving from beta to alpha to theta. And teacher's like, hey, Craig, why don't you come up here and do the problem on the board? And I'm wide awake. Looking at the problem. All the kids are staring at me. The teacher's staring at me. And I'm like, I'm embarrassed. I'm humiliated. I don't know how to do this problem. Now I'm firing about, 30 cycles per second because I'm stressed. And so those are all altered states of consciousness. I've altered my state of consciousness about 3 or 4 times just there in high school math class, just in about 7-8 minutes. And so this isn't like you can or can't. It's just you are.
Yeah.
You may be aware of it. If you've ever been bored in a meeting at work, or just bored at work, and you started thinking of something else, thinking of something in the future, or remembering something in the past, you've just moved into the hypnagogic trance state, which is alpha, theta, and delta brainwave states. So it's not that you can't be hypnotized. You can. Watching TV puts you in the alpha brainwave state.
That makes sense.
So you got to be really careful about what you're watching.
Yes, I say that all the time.
If you're in the hypnosis altered state of consciousness, and in a very very influential state of mind, what are you watching? The news, politicians, commercials, horror movies? What are you watching?
Yeah.
It's influencing you because you're now in a altered state of consciousness of the alpha brainwave state. And so you got to be really careful, because not only can you be hypnotized, you are being influenced by commercials, by news, by politicians, by, whatever, even just watching a movie.
Yeah.
Are you crying at the end? Are you laughing? Are you upset? Are you angry that the hero got shot? Or, are you crying because somebody's passing? You're being influenced. You just saw the actor on late night TV last night. That's why you're watching the movie, because you heard them talking about, the actor's still alive.
Yeah.
But yet you have removed yourself from kind of the quote unquote reality, and you've engaged subconsciously with this story by moving into the alpha brainwave state, by altering your state of consciousness. And because of the music and the close-ups and the zoom shots and all these things, you're being manipulated to feel a certain way, either sad or happy or excited or whatever. And you are. So it's not fascinating that you can't do this work. You're doing the work. It's just when you do a hypnotherapy session, you're doing it on purpose, and you're actually doing it with control. And to a certain extent, if you're hurting, you're in pain. I don't know. This may not be the exact correct way of saying this, but you've already lost a certain amount of control.
True.
Because you're allowing this hurt and pain to influence how you feel or how you move through the world.
Yeah.
I mean, there's people with agoraphobia who won't leave their house. They're so afraid. And so you're already hypnotized. You're already allowing the unconscious mind to influence your behavior. So why don't you take control of it? And what's the best way to do that? Is therapeutic hypnosis.
I'm so glad you explained this, because I don't know a lot about hypnotherapy. I know some, and it's fascinating because my first thought is, it's scary and it's someone else controlling your mind. That's always been my understanding, is that I'm opening up my mind and I'm making it available for you to help me kind of change it around. But how I looked at it is that I was letting you have the control of fixing me. And that's where it gets scary. And that's always been my hesitation about it, because I'm like, I'm not gonna, I've always been one, I don't like to lose control. Right.
Right. Oh,
so
yeah.
that's why that's why I don't get drunk. That's why I don't, because I don't want to lose control. And so the thought of hypnotherapy has always been like, ooh, I'm handing myself over to someone, and I better know that they're safe, because they're going to have control over me. And what you're saying is, you're just really helping someone create a space to work through this, because we're already doing this ourselves.
Yeah.
Right. Like you say, we're already hypnotized, and it makes such sense. I mean, this is so good. This is so interesting. And one of the things I was going to say is, when we have that situation happen to us when we're little, and we find that way to get through that moment, and we hypnotize ourselves. And I just say, it's like, I had a situation happen in my little mind. I found a way to get through that moment. That moment sticks in my head and is stored in my subconscious, so that I know in the future, it's note to self, the next time something like this happens, this is what I do. Well, it worked at that moment. And this is what you were explaining. It worked at the moment. It got you through that crisis. But then it gets stored in our subconscious, and we go into adult life, and another situation, and this has happened to me so many times, and recently too, a situation comes up where my brain, not me, but my brain interprets it like, we're going back to that 5-year-old in that situation. Remember that, way you resolved it then. And we try to use that now, and it doesn't work.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. It's just like the, Bill and Fred, the accountants, arguing in the next office.
Yes.
While everybody else is laughing and rolling their eyes. That could be very frightening to you, because that's what sounds like your home was like when you were 5 or 6. And the best thing you did was to hide. And to snuff out your light, and to keep yourself small, and not, bring attention to yourself, because then the violence or the trauma gets focused on you. But until you resolve those instructions set up by a child, why would anything change? And it's all happening automatically. Again, you're already hypnotized. You've already lost control. So really, this work is giving you back control, giving you back your ability to gain power. And it doesn't have to take a long time. Just as a quick example of a real person I worked with. I live in Flagstaff, Arizona. And during the COVID years, I was doing some online classes for the cancer support community of Arizona. Although technically, because it was Zoom, anybody could join the classes if you heard about them. But we're doing we do series of classes on pain control, healing acceleration, and immune system boosting. And you get like 10, 12, 15 people in during these classes, and all over Zoom. And during one of the series of classes, there was an older woman. I'm guessing she was in her 70s. And she went to the first 2 classes. They're about an hour long. And there's not much time with 15 people to chit chat or get to know anybody. People come to classes and then they have to go about their lives. But on the 3rd class, I'm there, setting up the Zoom class, and she logs in a bit early. And so we're just chit chatting about life and things. And she asked me if hypnotherapy works with procrastination. I was like, yeah, that's a mindset issue. That's a belief issue, that even though this thing is beneficial to you, whether it's getting your homework done or getting that report done for work or whatever the situation is, it will be beneficial to you. There's some fear around moving forward with that. It's a mindset issue. So yeah, hypnotherapy can work with that, because you know why you're doing it, maybe not consciously, but unconsciously you know why you're moving away from that issue. And so we actually set up an appointment for the very next day, because I had an afternoon appointment available. And what's interesting about this work, when your subconscious mind realizes you're going to be doing some healing work on a very deep level, it'll come to the conclusion, well, we can work on a problem, but why not work on the problem? And so 24 hours later, we get on a Zoom call to do this session. And she says, I know I told you I want to work on procrastination, but what I really want to work on is why I don't matter in life. This is a 70-year-old woman who thinks she's worthless and doesn't matter. It has no worth. I said, okay, yeah, we can absolutely work on that because, again, that's a mindset issue, a belief issue, but it's also attached to a feeling state in the body. Because just like anxiety has a feeling state, anger has a feeling state, fear has a feeling, joy, happiness has a feeling state. Not feeling worthy has a feeling state somewhere in the body. And so in the process we're going to do, we're going to go back to the very first time you ever felt worthless, that you didn't matter in life. You know what it is, maybe not consciously, but this is what you're trying to protect yourself from. And or you're using the feeling state of not being worthy or mattering in life to protect you from putting yourself out there in the world or whatever the situation is. You know what it is because you're doing it. You're literally changing your physiology to warn you with this feeling state. So in the deeper work we're doing during that one-on-one session, we do a regression back to the first time she ever felt it to heal that situation. 10 down to 1, I'm counting down. On 1, I want you to tell me where you are and what the situation is that made you feel you weren't worthy or you didn't matter in life. She says, I'm standing up in my crib and my father's screaming at me because I won't stop crying. Now, I don't know, standing up in your crib, that's what, maybe 12 months old, 14 months old. And if she's 70-ish years old, this was a few years ago too, but she's 70 years old, that's what, maybe the late 1950s, early 1960s, and maybe men aren't exactly trained on how to be nurturing fathers back then. Maybe dad was just not the best person in the world. But whatever the situation is, there's a baby crying in need of some help. Here's a father who's having a bad day, a bad week, a bad life, maybe just not the nicest person in the world. Mom's out of the house. He doesn't know what to do. And in his frustration and his anger and his just wanting some peace and quiet, thinks the best thing to do is just to yell louder than the baby and tell the baby to shut up. Now, in that instant, that baby the child has to justify why this is happening. Here's this person who's supposed to protect her, love her, nurture her. And this person's screaming at her. That's terrifying for a baby, for a little child. And so the subconscious mind is trying to justify why this is happening. And in her subconscious mind, she's decided that, well, I guess the reason this is happening is I don't matter in life. The things I do don't matter. My hurt, my pain does not matter. My tears do not matter. I am worthless. Is that true? Of course, that's not true. But that's the instructions that were installed in that instant. And she held on to that for some 70 years until one day she's decided to let it go. Healing happens in an instant.
Oh, bless her heart.
And that situation healed during that session. I never saw her again. And I check up with people and she would check up on me over the course of a year or so. So every few months, it was, hey, how are you doing? How are you? Perfect. Things are great. Things are amazing. She feels so good about herself and in her life. Because healing happens in an instant. It maybe took her some 60, 70 years to get to that point where it was time to heal and take off that uncomfortable jacket or that armor. But she healed in an instant. So she had basically like 2 or 3 generalized group sessions over topics that had nothing to do with her hurt and pain control, healing acceleration, physical pain control, healing acceleration, immune system, and then 1 solo session. That was it. That's how powerful you. And again, I didn't do anything. I don't know what her problem is.
Yeah.
And how long in talk therapy, and again, not to put talk therapists on,
right,
but how long in talk therapy was it going to take her to get back to being 12 months old, 14 months old? And so that's the difference between what we're doing here and there. Hypnotherapy is an extraordinary modality. And in fact, I'm sure many of you, Lisa, and many of your watchers and listeners know of Sigmund Freud. And Sigmund Freud, the father of analytical psychology, he was actually a hypnotherapist. In Vienna, back in the late 1800s, there was 2 schools of hypnotherapy. He was at one of them. And the issue with Sigmund Freud is he had a speech impediment. And as you can tell from me, just with doing this interview and a conversation with you, Lisa, I talk a lot. And a hypnotherapist will talk a lot because, you get to a session, it's like, and we'll have talked beforehand over a phone call, a consultation call, and have an intake form. So I know what you're working on. But I'll get a little more detail, a little more nuance about what it is you're looking to heal. And then there's the induction, there's the deepening, there's the actual deep healing work. Maybe there's regression work, there's visualization work, there's suggestions and new instructions to create a positive mindset. And then there's the bringing the person out, and then there's checking in and making sure you're okay. And certainly don't want to get somebody in a trance state back in their car and on the highway. So you talk to them. So there's a lot of talking for a hypnotherapist. If you have a speech impediment, that's not going to go very well for you.
Yeah.
And he was also a little frustrated that and peeved to a certain extent that people would walk into a hypnotherapist's office with a problem and walk out without the problem. Because he wanted to dive in and say, well, where's the darkness? Where's the shadow? Why is this happening? Let's analyze the situation on why it's here and who put it there and what. And so he started developing analytical psychology. He literally called it talk therapy. And not that he was talking, the other person was doing all the talking.
Mm-hmm.
And you've probably seen the pictures of the drawings. He would sit behind the person and write his notes. And they're very interesting. Let's come back next week and talk some more. And what he said about this new type of therapy is talk therapy. What he said, it was not a poor man's therapy, because it was going to take hundreds and hundreds of hours. And just to put it out there, when he was developing his theories about analytical psychology and talk therapy and all this, he was high on cocaine. And he was taking, and he was a cocaine addict for a lot of his life. When we saw some of the issues going on with it, he stopped. But you can take a tour of his office in Vienna. Go see famous Sigmund Freud's office in Vienna. Take a tour of it, and there's still vials of pharmaceutical grade cocaine on his shelf.
Oh, geez.
And so this is where and again, it's not to put talk therapists on blast. There's some great, wonderful, amazing healing people who do extraordinary work. I think everybody should have a coach in their life, whether it's
I agree.
for business or relationships or certainly sports or music or whatever you want to do, martial arts, whatever you want to do, you should have a coach in your life.
Yep.
But in terms of, just randomly shining a flashlight in the dark and hoping you hit upon something that's going to create healing, I don't know. If you know what the problem is, just fix it.
Well, and I say on my podcast so often that there's a place for talk therapy, but when it comes to trauma, talk therapy isn't going to help, especially in the beginning. It's just not. You're not going to dig in, because you're right. You have to get into the subconscious and you have to get into the physical part of it. And talk therapy isn't going to do that.
Yeah. Yeah. And again, I don't want to disparage anybody's healing or the healing work they do, or the amount of study it takes to become a counselor or a social worker or a therapist, because it's extraordinarily difficult to do that kind of training and things. But it's also frustrating to get people in your office or on a Zoom call who said, I've been doing therapy for 3 years and I still hurt.
Oh God. Yeah.
Yeah. That's 52 weeks a year. That's
a lot.
150 sessions.
Yeah.
And there's probably some help there, like dealing with relationships at work or in family or something. But if you're not working on the core issue, what are you doing?
Yeah. You're working around the core issue. That's what you're doing. You're working around it. Yeah. One of the things, I wasn't going to say what we were going to kind of talk about, and you kind of touched on the first thing, but I was going to talk about the 3 takeaways, which is something you put in your guest form. And it was really interesting. And you kind of already talked about the first one, which is it doesn't take months or years to change your mindset. So you just did you did such a great job explaining this. Seriously, I have a whole new understanding and respect, because this is stuff I just didn't know about it. So it's great. And then the second one is, imagine you are the person you want to become and literally rewire your brain, which is, you were starting to kind of touch on that.
Okay. Yeah. That's really interesting. That actually comes from research, I believe back in the 1990s, where researchers wanted to watch the brain as it learned something new. They're getting all this new technology of MRIs and SPECT scans. They can finally watch the brain in real time, because before that, all they knew about the brain is what they could derive from sociological experiments and autopsies on dead brains. And so now they can actually watch the brain communicate with itself and the other neurons in real time. And so they wanted to watch the brain as it learned something new. And so they decided to teach people piano. So they brought in a bunch of volunteers who didn't know how to play piano. And they showed them the simple little scales and the exercises and the little songs you learn as a beginner. They also had the control group, because when you want to publish something, you have to have that control group. So they didn't do anything. And so at the end of the research study, they can show here's a brain that didn't do anything, didn't learn anything new. Here's a brain that's learning piano. What are the differences? Compare and contrast. They had a third group who played piano but didn't learn anything. They just randomly went over the keys just without learning anything, just like playing notes for an hour and nothing else. But what's extraordinary is they had a fourth group who only pretended to learn piano. And so they brought them in, they showed them the simple little scales and the exercises and the little songs you learn as a beginner. But instead of sitting at the piano, they went over, sat down on the couch or the recliner, and they only pretended. They just daydreamed. They only imagined that they were playing the piano. And so at the end of this week, a week or two, they looked at everybody's brains. Of course, the control group, nothing changed. They didn't learn anything new. They didn't do anything different. So of course their brains don't change. So no big mystery there. The group that actually played the piano, they worked the keys with their fingers. They did the exercises and the scales. They heard the music, the little songs with their ears. They read the sheet music with their eyes. They developed a new neural pathway in the part of the brain for music and learning. Of course they did. They're learning music. Of course they're going to rewire their brain and change their brain. The group who only randomly just played keys on the piano, they didn't learn anything. So nothing changed in their brain. They didn't learn anything. They didn't do anything new. They just randomly playing nothing. But what's extraordinary is the group who only pretended to play. They didn't touch the piano. They didn't hear any music. They didn't see any sheet music. The group who only pretended to play piano also developed the same neural network in the same part of the brain for music. It looked like they were playing the piano, even though they never touched one. And so if you don't have the confidence, you don't have the joy, you don't have the happiness, you can have it. It may be as simple as pretending you do. You know, if you're not confident in something, let's say somebody has to give the big speech at the conference or at the meeting or something, and they're not confident about it. Well, you're confident in a great many things. You're confident that you can tie your shoes. You're confident you can walk down the street. You're confident you can ride maybe a bicycle or something like that. Zip up a jacket, button your shirt. You're confident in a great many things. Where do you feel that in your body? And I'll just link that feeling of confidence to giving that speech and then practice that. Even if you don't believe it, even if you have to pretend, it'll literally wire your brain for things. Now, part of the issue is if I hand you a glass of water, Lisa, and put a teaspoon of dirt in there, and then put 2 teaspoons of sugar, you know, it's still a glass full of dirt. You know,
still muddy water.
You want to remove the dirt and things, but there are ways of improving your life. Just because you remove the trauma and the hurt and the pain doesn't automatically fill you full of joy and happiness. Maybe it does, but it doesn't necessarily mean that that's what's going to fill you up. So practice that. And
is it almost like a fake it till you make it? Is that where that saying kind of came from?
Exactly what that is. And many people, maybe Lisa and a lot of your listeners may remember the Soviet Union in the 1970s was very dominant in the Olympics and gymnastics. They had Nadia Comaneci and all those people. They would win the gold, silver, and bronze. They'd win all the world championships, and nobody could figure out what they were doing differently than everybody else in the world to be so dominant in gymnastics. And at the end of the 70s, the early 1980s, some of the athletes and the coaches started to defect. And what of the gymnastics team, and what we found out is that the gymnastics team was spending at least 50% of their time in mental reversal.
Whoa, so I didn't know that.
They would get on the mat, and they would, there's books written about this in the early 80s. They would let's say they're doing the mat. They would practice, of course, the jumps and the twists and the turns and the tumbles and all that stuff to the music, whatever they're doing. And then after a day of practicing, they would sit on the couch, they sit on the recliner, close their eyes, and do it again, and do it again. And maybe they're doing it regular speed, maybe they're doing it slow motion, maybe they're doing the last 30 seconds, maybe they're doing the parallel bars or the uneven bars or whatever, and they're doing the last 30 seconds of the dismount. But they're doing that. Now we know why that worked.
That's interesting.
Because they're literally wiring that into their heads. And this becomes very, very concerning, and maybe is the right way to say this. Because very concerning, because what if you're practicing failure? What if you have to give that speech at that conference next month and you're seeing yourself stumbling over your words, your PowerPoint's upside down, people are laughing and rolling their eyes, and it gets bigger and bigger. They're throwing rotten tomatoes at you. They're chasing you off the stage. What if you're practicing failure? What if you're practicing not being the best person you can be? Are you not literally wiring that into your brains? And so of all the things to do in your life, if you could practice just being the person you want to be, even just for 5-6 minutes at a time, practice having all the health and the vitality and the energy and the happiness and the joy and the confidence and the success and the abundance and the gratitude, whatever it is you want, you can have it. It just may take it wiring that into your brain.
Yeah.
But this is why, as we get older, they tell you to, in retirement age, and you're getting into your 70s and 80s, they learn chess, learn dance, learn a foreign language, whatever. They want to keep the brain, otherwise it's just stagnant. And so keep the brain active, and so learn joy.
Well,
learn happiness, just like you're learning martial arts.
You know what? And a story of mine just came to mind when you're sharing this, and I know that what you're saying is true in my life. I've shared this story before on the podcast. I'll share it real quick again because it's definitely relevant to this. So a couple of years ago, my husband had a really serious health scare, and it was really serious. And I remember, I don't know which night it was when he was in the hospital, the second night or something, and it was a little scary. I remember I was at home, and my brain automatically started going down that dark road, and it started going to a really dark road. And I'm not in that place in my life anymore. So I really felt it. I was really aware of what was going on in my head and certainly how it was making me feel. And I was panicking. I was probably pretty close to having a panic attack. Yeah. And I knew in that moment I needed to switch this up because this is not working for me. And first thing I did actually is I went in the bedroom and I turned on a meditation, and I did that because I was just so amped up, and I knew I had to first get myself calm. So I got myself calm with the meditation so that I could think a little more clearly. When I was done with the meditation, I did doze for probably a couple of minutes. And when I woke up, what came to me is, okay, now start thinking about what you want it to look like. Yeah. And I literally spent days focusing on what I want this to look like. And you know what? It worked.
Yeah. Yeah. It's extraordinary. I highly recommend this book to everybody if you want to dive in deeper into what Lisa was just talking about. It's called The Field by Lynn McTaggart. And you could probably, it's an older book. I think it's about 15 years old now. But what it is the science and the research behind what you were just talking about and why it works. Not only just with, things like creating your future, but things like intentional prayer.
Yeah.
Does it work? Yeah. Does it not work? Even crazy things like remote viewing that the government was researching. She has all that research, and she goes through it bit by bit and explains it all and shows you the research and shows you where you can find it. And it's called The Field, kind of like a field of flowers, but just The Field. And it's about using what you were just talking about, but backing it up with the science.
Yeah.
It's extraordinary how powerful we are.
Yeah. I'm so glad though that you brought up, because I was so focused on that side of it of, thinking the positive. I didn't even stop and think about it until you said it of, going to the other side, because there's times I catch myself, and this takes practice too, because these thoughts come into our head, and I always call them sneaky, because they kind of they come in the side door. They don't come always face onto you. Next thing you know, you realize you're meditating on this thought or thoughts, and it takes you down a really dark road. And so that just gave me, I knew that, but by you saying that brought to the forefront of my mind that going forward, I absolutely need to be careful of that, because we tend to do that. We tend to just go there. If something happens, my brain has always gone to the worst, because my brain goes into problem solving mode.
Yeah. And this is a entirely different conversation and probably not for here. but you got to watch what you're putting into your system. Not only just the food you put in your system. Of course, we all know that. You just can't eat pizza and drink beer and eat cake and pie. You're going to destroy your health. But it's like, what are you putting in to your mind and your soul, even if I may use that word? Uh, what news are you watching? What information comes to you? Because and again, this is a whole different conversation. It's like,
I'm with you
isn't
though.
it in their best interest to keep us in fear and to divide us? And so, are they doing that? How are they doing it? This is where you need to watch that influence and who's trying to control you and what is it to their benefit that they do control.
Yeah.
And so that's what's when you start watching this stuff, whether it's the TV shows or the movies or the podcasts or what are you feeding into your brain and how does it make you feel?
Yeah.
If you're
Music is that way too.
Yeah. Oh yeah, definitely.
Music can take me to tears, and music can take me to being full on pissed off. I've experienced it, and everything in between.
And again, isn't that not hypnotizing yourself?
Right.
I mean, if you can create an emotional response unconsciously just by listening to a piece of music, of a 3 or 4 minute piece of music, yeah, that's hypnosis. You're able to be, or uplifting music,
right?
Certainly before, there was that movie with Tony Robbins, that I Am Not Your Guru. Of course, he's playing the uplifting music, and it's like, oh, Tony Robbins is coming out, and he's going to play exciting music, and he puts himself in state to run out on stage, and he's doing that because he wants to manipulate the emotional excitement of the people. And again, it's not like, I mean, we do that at football games, we do that at baseball, all this stuff. It's not that it's anything new or I don't know, maybe you could call it manipulative, but he's doing it, the flashing lights and the exciting music and you want to be part of the crowd and it's fun, but it's also, you're doing it for a reason.
Right.
And so what else are people doing for a reason and why? And so, again, it's like that thing, it's like a wine tastes better poured from a heavier bottle.
Yeah.
Pills work better depending on the color and shape and how expensive they are.
Yeah.
Your perception of another person may depend on whether you're holding hot coffee or iced coffee. And so if it's coming down to that kind of level of minutia of whether you're holding hot coffee or iced coffee, what else is going on?
Yeah. Seriously, because those are just so simple.
Yeah. Yeah. And who knows that too? I mean, this isn't this kind of thing. It's like, if I know this information, if Craig Meriwether knows this, what do governments know? What does the news know? What do advertisers and marketers know?
It's their life. It's what they know for sure. And they know how to use it. I'm learning so much about that. I'm telling you. This one's interesting, this third takeaway. And then and then I want you to share your simple techniques and strategies to dealing with anxiety and building confidence. You say it takes like 5 minutes, but this last one, your mind, and I know this is true, your mind can't tell the difference between what's real and what is imagined.
Yeah, it's
huge.
The best example of this is having a nightmare in the middle of the night.
Yeah.
And you're deep sleep, but for whatever reason, whether trauma or your brain's just trying to file away all the information you gained during your day, you have this crazy dream. And it's a cheeseburger and his two hot dog friends chasing you down the street throwing coconuts at you. It's ridiculous. It's never going to happen. And yet, even in deep sleep, your mind thinks you're being threatened and you're in danger. So even in deep sleep, it'll start creating that adrenaline and that cortisol. It'll start creating those neuropeptides of fear and anxiety and stress. 300% more blood, even in deep sleep, is moving to the big muscle of your arms to fight. 300% more blood in the big muscle of your legs to escape. All because of cheeseburgers chasing out the street, let alone if, let's say, a war veteran having a PTSD dream about being back home, even though the war was 30 years ago.
Yeah.
And so the reason, and that's just a generalized example of having a nightmare in the middle of the night, whether you've experienced it or maybe you know somebody has, maybe your children have. So what's happening in your waking life? If that's what can happen during sleep, what's happening in your waking life? Again, Bill and Fred, the accountants in the next door office, they are not a threat. They're just arguing because, the numbers, once again, aren't adding up at the end of the month. It's not a threat to you. And yet it's imagined within your powerful part of the unconscious mind because of the triggers of the raised voices or the yelling or the whatever. But there is danger. Is there danger? No, there's not danger. Bill and Fred are okay. They're just, holler at each other at the end of the month. But in an imagined state, your unconscious mind thinks there is danger and will turn on the stress response. And so, it's like the same before taking a test, maybe like back in high school, or, so many people have to take a professional exam, whether a real estate agent or lawyer, taking the bar exam, or electrician or plumbers or firefighters, whatever. You have to take a professional exam, and it's like, the exam's not going to hurt you.
Right.
But fear of failure, fear of being judged, and people walk into a test, or maybe I guess nowadays where a lot of them are happening online, you walk towards the time to take the test and feel that anxiety and the stress. It's not a life-threatening situation, but it may be important because it may be decide what college you're going to or whether you can start your career or any of that. But it's not life-threatening that you'll literally turn on the stress response to the point where you have such hyper-focused intensity on the threat that you forget all that you learned.
Oh, yeah.
Information backwards and forwards. You could teach the class. That's how well you know it. But when put in a testing situation, you forget everything you learned. Or you can't, or at least you can't even forget it. You just can't access it because you're in the stress response. And so,
yeah, you know what it feels like? Because I just did this recently. I took my broker's license. And what it feels like is you're getting squeezed so hard. The pressure is so hard. It's squeezing all the education you had and all the knowledge you had out.
Yeah.
And it's just blank.
And there's another, 2-hour conversation about that. But, somewhere down the line, we were educated and trained to think tests were dangerous. More than likely, my guess, more than likely for a lot of us, was that we were punished because we did poorly on the test. We didn't go to the dance. We didn't go to hang out with our friends. Or we had to take summer school because we didn't pass the math class or whatever it is. Or we didn't get into college we wanted. We got punished. And instead of a test being a sign of what you need to learn,
right,
and therefore, okay, well, it sounds like you need a little extra tutoring in this or that.
Right.
Instead of you got punished for it. And so now that you don't want to be punished again, or you don't want to, miss the next dance or not hang out with your friends. And so a test becomes dangerous.
Yeah.
And the more you practice that, now you find yourself, maybe getting your master's and not being able to complete the courses because back in the 6th grade, you didn't do so well on the spelling exam, whatever. And so again, what you practice, you get better at. And again, it's that thing of, your mind can't tell the difference between what's real and what's imagined.
Yeah.
So what are you practicing for? Are you practicing like the gymnasts? Are you practicing for success? Are like the piano players? Are you practicing playing piano so you'll wire your brain to look like you're a piano player, or are you practicing failure?
So
it just becomes more automatic that every time you get into a test situation that you don't do well. I worked with somebody, one of my first clients I ever worked with, extraordinarily intelligent woman. And she had trained, she'd gotten her master's degree, gone to graduate school, and now she wanted to niche and become an audiologist to work with deaf children, or children with hearing impairment. What an extraordinary career to get into. And she couldn't pass the licensing exam. She has a master's degree, and we're working, and not only there's like, one, you can't pass the test to start your career. I mean, she spent tens of thousands of dollars to get this training, this year-long training. It's something like $600 per test. And it doesn't matter whether you pass or fail. It was like $600. But she'd have to tell her family. She'd have to tell her friends, no, I didn't pass again. The humiliation, the embarrassment of not passing, even though she knew the information. And it it came back to starting the master's program, because in high school and getting her bachelor's, she was top of the class. She was the smartest person at the school. And when she went to get her master's, she switched schools. And now she's at a school where everybody was the smartest person at school. So she's in, she's at a school where everybody was the top 1%. And to compete and to still be at the top of the class of a school filled with top of the classers, if that's a word, she started stressing. She started becoming anxious. She started studying more and staying up late and not getting enough sleep, and spent 2 or 3 years doing that. And what you practice, you get better at. And so she walked out of school, not only with her master's degree, but with an extraordinarily wired in fear of tests. And now wanting to work with children with hearing impairment. She couldn't starting salary for an audiologist is something like $85,000. So not only spent all this money, and on the money on the test, and the embarrassment, humiliation of not telling her family she didn't pass once again, she can't start this career where, after a few years, you're probably making $100,000, $120,000. It's like, it's the extraordinary frustration of that and disappointment. And all because she had practiced being nervous before tests.
Yep.
It had nothing to do with how intelligent she was. Extraordinarily smart woman. But it's just, she had trained herself. She had hypnotized herself to the point where she couldn't even pass a test, even though she knew the material, again, backwards and forwards. And so what you practice, you get better at. And it doesn't matter whether the threat is real or imagined, or whether you're, imagining success or failure. It's your body and mind thinks it's happening now. So even if you're trying to fall asleep, a lot of people sometimes when they're really stressed and anxious, they can't fall asleep, or they'll wake up after a couple of hours. And it's because as you're falling asleep, we have a tendency to ruminate about life. More likely somebody's fearing in the future, maybe having to give that speech at the big conference in a couple of months, or maybe remembering something that was fearful or traumatic, whether it happened last month or 50 years ago. And it's your mind trying to come up with scenarios to protect you. Sort of like an airline pilot, and they need to fly into London next week, and they've never been to Heathrow Airport. So what they're going to do is the pilot, she's going to get on a flight simulator and practice every scenario that could run into while flying into London. And so what if there's turbulence, bad turbulence over the Atlantic? What if they switch runways on the last minute? What if it's raining? What if it's in the dark? All these different scenarios they're going to practice. So when they actually do it, they're prepared for every scenario. That's what your mind's trying to do when you're ruminating at the end of the night, when you're trying to fall asleep. The problem is, it doesn't matter that the conference is, 2 months from now. It doesn't matter that trauma happened 50 years ago. Your mind and your body, your brain thinks it's happening right now. Even though you're cozy and comfortable in bed. Again, it doesn't matter if, it really is like you're experiencing a traumatic event again, or it's a cheeseburger chasing on the street. Your mind thinks it's happening right now.
Yeah.
And so we talked about doing showing you a exercise or two, a technique to literally shut that down. And now might be a good time. Not only could you do this in the morning, or in the middle of the afternoon, but you can do this as you're falling asleep. And really quick, this is really simple. You can teach your little kids how to do this. This is how simple this is. And so it's very simply, it's a process, an exercise developed by Dr. Richard Nongard, who's a wonderful psychotherapist and hypnotherapist. And he calls it 3, 2, 1 reset. And the 3 is 3 slow, gentle, deep breaths. And it's a little annoying when you're feeling anxious or angry or to have somebody tell you to take a deep breath. It's really not. But that is literally the best thing you can do, because what that does is resets your nervous system. And I'm talking about the big belly breaths into your abdomen, because when we're stressed, we just breathe into the top part of our lungs. And you've seen a lung in a picture or drawing. It's like narrow on the top and wider on the bottom. Well, if you're just breathing into the top part of your lungs, you're only taking in 1/10 of the amount of oxygen you can actually breathe in to your lungs. And so by breathing into your abdomen, you actually flatten out your diaphragm and get air into the bottom of your lungs. If you feel where your rib cage is, it's like 2 inches from your hip bones. The lungs are huge.
Yeah.
And so by breathing in, first off, one, you're using the entire lungs as they're meant to be used. They're that big for a reason. But your brain takes 20% of the oxygen you breathe in. So the more oxygen you can breathe in, the more nutrients, the more fuel, the more oxygen you can send to your brain for rational, calm thinking. So a big part of the issue with stress and anxiety is you're not fueling your brain, and it's shutting down because it doesn't have enough nutrients and fuel to operate at optimal levels. So deep breathing into your abdomen will send that oxygen. The other thing is we have the vagus nerve comes out of our brain. A lot of people have heard about that. A lot of talk and research coming out about the vagus nerve over the last 20 years or so. But we have all these nerves that come out of the back of our head, attached to all parts of our body. That's the thing, when you do touch that hot pot, signal goes up a nerve. You're touching the hot pot, let it go. It goes back down, you let it go, all within a millionth of a second. The 10th cranial nerve is the vagus nerve. Vagus is Latin for wanderer because it wanders all over the body. The vagus nerve attaches to the eyes, to the ears, muscles of your jaw, heads down past your vocal cords, attaches to your heart, lungs, and to your gut. The vagus nerve is a big part of the parasympathetic nervous system, the relaxation response, not the stress response, the sympathetic, but the parasympathetic relaxation response. It's attached to your lungs. By breathing slowly, gently, and as deeply as is comfortable for you, you stimulate the vagus nerve, therefore activate the parasympathetic.
Okay. I've heard this before. This is fascinating how deeply you're explaining this.
And the other thing, and just to add into this, a great way for just doing breathing, by breathing in deeply into your abdomen as much as you can until you feel you can't get into more air in, and then one more time, and then exhale out your mouth with an audible sigh or a hum or something. One that feels awesome, but the vagus nerve goes past the vocal cords. As you vibrate the vocal cords, you stimulate the vagus nerve, therefore activate the parasympathetic. So you're doubling the activation of your parasympathetic by humming or singing.
Yeah, I heard humming. I've heard humming and singing.
Or oming if you're meditating. So if you're at a stoplight and you're feeling stress or something, sing, or I guess you could sing while you're driving. So 3, 2, 1, reset. 3, slow, deep breaths in, exhaling out your mouth if it's appropriate and safe for you to do so. Hum or loudly sigh out. Then the 2 is what we're going to do is create bilateral stimulation. Now, when somebody's afraid, when somebody's panicked, when somebody is anxious, they're lighting up a part of the right side of the brain. Okay? So the brain only has so much blood supply, oxygen, nutrients, fuel, energy. And so to light up this part of the brain, to feel that panic, to put you in that stress response, it has to vacuum it away, absorb it from these other parts of the brain. The other parts of these brain go dark and quiet. And so you're just anxious and afraid and fearful. So how do you undo that? Well, by forcing your body to move. And I don't mean force, but just move your body. So here's my little squeezy stress ball. And for the listeners, all I'm going to do is outstretch my arms into a T, like a cross. And then I'm going to pass this little squeezy ball from hand to hand in front of me. So I'm going to cross center points, basically the sternum. Right side of the brain controls the left side of the body. Left side of the brain controls the right side of the body. So by moving, I start operating in different parts of my brain. I need oxygen. I need fuel. I need a blood supply in order to do that. Where is it coming from? It's going to pull it away from that anxiety and that stress so I can start lighting up these other parts of the brain. Just moving your body, passing this ball in front, and whatever it is, a pen, you can do it with a pen. I wouldn't do it with your phone or a glass or with a mug or anything. You don't want to pass anything that you might accidentally drop and break. But just clap your hands in front of you. I don't know. But people may remember maybe back in high school, or maybe they've been at a meeting recently where they saw somebody drumming on their knees.
Yeah.
They're not hyper, they're not ADHD, they're not bored, they're nervous. And they're self-soothing themselves by doing bilateral stimulation. That left, right, left, right, left, right on their knees is bilateral stimulation. They're calming themselves down. They may just not know they're doing it. Walking, left foot, right foot, left foot, right foot. That's bilateral stimulation. That's why I think, personally, every talk therapy session should be done walking.
Oh.
Whether you're out in a park or, I don't know, you got two treadmills next to you or something. But especially guys don't need to look eye to eye and sit and talk about their feelings. No, they need to be out walking. And so anyway, there's that left foot, right foot. That's why they think that EDMR, that eye movement.
Yeah, I've done it.
That's why that works so well.
Yeah.
You're moving the eyes around. It's bilateral stimulation.
Yep.
Moving the other way. Now moving the other way. It's bilateral stimulation. So you're calming the brain down and your nervous system down while you're dealing with the traumatic event.
Right.
So 3, 2, 1 reset. 3 slow, gentle breaths in, humming if it's appropriate on the exhale out. 2, we're going to create bilateral stimulation, but what we're going to do is grab our shoulders. And so by grabbing our shoulders, you can squeeze your shoulders or give yourself a big hug or do the havening technique. And the havening technique is just one aspect of it, is rubbing your hands back and forth, up and down your shoulders. Now, you're doing this, you notice that this is nurturing, healing touch. This is a hug. And even though you're giving it to yourself, you're now changing your brain chemistry. If you were anxious and afraid and fearful, you had the hormones of adrenaline and cortisol being produced in your brain. By giving yourself a hug, this nurturing, healing touch is sending a signal through your nerves back up to your brain to start creating oxytocin, serotonin, and dopamine. You're literally hacking your brain. And we're going to supersize this by thinking of somebody to give a hug to. Here's that. Your mind can't tell the difference between what's real and what's imagined. So while the body is literally physically feeling this hug, even though you're giving it to yourself, and creating oxytocin, serotonin, and dopamine, the feel-good chemicals and feel-good neuropeptides in your brain, we're now going to light up the visual part of the brain and think of somebody you want to give a hug to. And it could be somebody in your life today, be a good friend, maybe a family member, a child, grandchild. It could be a pet, a dog, a cat, or maybe you kind of align yourself with a power animal, the lion or the eagle or the bear, the wolf or whatever. It could be somebody who's no longer with us. Your grandmother, your grandfather, maybe somebody you've never met before. Mother Teresa, Gandhi, Joan of Arc. Doesn't matter because your mind can't tell the difference between imagining hugging Mother Teresa or not. If or doing it, obviously you're not going to be able to do that if she passed away, but this is just a simple little exercise you can do in 5 minutes. And so if it's safe for you to do so, let's practice this just for maybe a minute or so. But if it's safe for you to do so, meaning you're not driving a car or you're not supervising the kids around the swimming pool or you're cooking with fire, if it's safe for you to focus on this, please do so, and we'll do it together for a little bit. If not, clock where we are in the interview and come back to it.
Yeah.
Basically, once again, just closing, if it's safe for you to do so, closing your eyes and taking a deep breath in through your nose, into your belly, exhaling out through your mouth. Doing that several times. You can do it 5 times, 6 times. Just easy to remember. 3, 2, 1 reset. And when you're ready, just grab your shoulders. And again, you can just squeeze back and forth your shoulders or give yourself a big bear hug or do that havening technique, rubbing your hands back, whatever feels best, whatever feels good to you. Because if you're feeling good, you already know you're changing your brain chemistry, firing your brain cells in a different way. And the more you practice something, the better you get at it. And then just bring into your imagination, just pretend while you're feeling this hug with your body, pretend you're hugging somebody you care for, or an animal, a pet, your dog, your cat, your parakeet. I know you probably wouldn't hug your parakeet, but you can imagine you are. So just pretend you're doing that. Your mind can't tell the difference between what's real and what's imagined. And just really quickly, we're going to move into another exercise. So again, if it's safe for you to just do so, keep your eyes closed. And if you'd like, you can put your hands back on your lap or in the arm of the chair, or wherever you may be. But I want to focus on your heart. We're going to move into an exercise called heart coherence, developed by an institute called Heart Math. because about 35 years ago, they discovered that there's 40,000 neurons in the heart, something like 10 trillion neurons in the brain. Okay, maybe that's not, maybe like 100 billion neurons in the brain, a million neurons in the gut, but there's 40,000 in the heart. And by doing this next exercise, just for a few minutes, 5-6 minutes, not only puts you in a more resilient, more resourceful state of mind and body, it lowers your blood pressure and turns on 1,300 different processes to boost your immune system.
Oh.
Because it's turning off the stress response, and all that energy goes back to your immune system. It turns up the volume on your immune system. So if you'd like, you could put your hand on your heart, because where you feel touch or attention goes, if that's comfortable for you. And just pretend by you're breathing in and out of your heart. And if you're a visual person, maybe you see your heart beating in your chest. Maybe it looks like a regular heart, anatomically correct heart, or maybe it looks more like a Valentine's Day heart, or maybe if you're an auditory person, you hear your heart beating. Or if you're a kinesthetic person, maybe you feel your heart beating in your chest. Feel the blood gently and smoothly moving throughout your body, bringing health and energy to all the places your blood nourishes. And with your imagination, bring in the feeling state of caring and compassion, whatever that means to you. If that's a color, what color is caring and compassion? Or is it more like an energy or a frequency, an energy wave? Or is it more of a sensation, a feeling, an emotion? Whatever the experience of caring and compassion, breathe it into your heart, and with every exhale, empower it and make it grow stronger. And notice that energy, that color expanding so it forms this kind of energy field around your heart. And imagine out in front of you, once again, is somebody you care for, somebody you love, maybe a pet, a dog, a cat, somebody who's no longer with us, or maybe somebody you've never even met before but inspires you. Experience that person out in front of you, and from your heart, send them that caring and compassion. If that's a color, send them that color. If that's an energy or frequency or energy wave or a feeling or a sensation, just send it to them. Like from your heart, from your overflow, just send them all that caring and compassion, sort of like they're wrapped in a big cozy blanket of this beautiful, amazing feeling of caring and compassion. Sort of like from the top of their head to their tips of their toes are in this warm, friendly cocoon of this amazing feeling, and it lights them up. Notice it merging into the very cells of their body. So they're lit up from the inside as well as the outside with caring and compassion from your heart. And then on top of that, using this foundation of caring and compassion, start bringing in things you're grateful about. Just listing one after the other. And it could be, maybe more of the smaller things, if you will, like a comfortable pair of shoes or a comfortable jacket, or maybe lunch you had with a friend, or maybe a big trip you took, a vacation you took, a piece of advice someone gave you, a book recommendation. Just start listing off all the things that come to mind that you're so grateful, so appreciative about, one after the other. And then when you're ready, we'll just end it there. But this is just something you can continue on in your life. Those are two very, I guess, somewhat similar exercises. But when you're ready, open your eyes. And this is, I don't want too much silence on a podcast, but this is something that you can do over the course of 5-6 minutes. You can do a half an hour. But a great time to do this is in the morning. Start your morning, even if you're just still lying in bed. You can hug yourself while you're in bed or on your side or something. And the reason why is it's going to reset your reticular activating system. And that's a part of the brain that's near the brainstem. And it's always looking for danger. It's the radar.
Right.
That's why you smell smoke, you wake up. You hear the baby coughing at the end of the hallway, you wake up. Back door creeps open at 3 a.m., you wake up. You have to go to the bathroom, you wake up. Too hot, too cold, you wake up. it's also a part of your mind that's looking for answers, creating solutions, and discovering new possibilities. And it's that part of your brain when you're thinking about buying a new car, you're thinking about buying a Toyota Prius. Now you see Toyota Priuses everywhere.
Everywhere.
They were there yesterday and last month and last year, but you didn't notice them because you weren't focused on them. But now that you're needing a solution to a new car, well, Toyota Prius is good gas mileage. I'll get a Toyota Prius. Well, maybe a week later, 2 weeks later, say, well, yeah, but me and my family, we like going outdoors. We like going out into nature and camping and things like this. I should get a 4-wheel drive car. I should get a Jeep. Well, now you just refocused your reticular activation. You don't see Priuses anymore. Now you see Jeeps. It's like a Jeep convention. They're everywhere. And they're always the Priuses. They're always driving down the street. But you're also not noticing the Kias or the Dodge Caravans or the BMWs. This is that part of your brain when your day goes from bad to worse. It's because you're focusing on nothing but problems. And the reason why is we're being inundated through our 5 senses, what we see, hear, taste, touch, smell. We're being inundated with 11 million bits of information per second.
Yeah.
We are only cognizant of 50.
Oh, God.
And so this is that thing when you don't notice the temperature of the room unless I just ask you to notice the temperature of your room.
Yeah.
Just like you don't notice your big toe on your right foot unless I say, hey, put your attention on the big toe of your right foot. It's like, oh yeah, it's there. It was always there. You just didn't focus on it. Just like, again, you don't notice the temperature of the room unless it's too hot or too cold. You don't notice the lights unless it's too bright or too dark. You don't notice maybe the hum of the airplane going overhead unless it's really loud over your head. And so we're only cognizant of about 50 bits of that 11 million per second. That means we have to filter out a lot of stuff.
Yeah.
And so when you have that experience of your day going from bad to worse, it's not that there's not good stuff in the world or in your life. You're just not seeing it or sensing it. And you're focused on nothing but problems, just like you're just focused on the Priuses. So all you're going to see are Priuses. So all you're going to see are problems. There's lots to be thankful about. There's lots to be joyful about. You're not noticing it. So what if you were to start your day with 3-2-1 reset or that heart coherence exercise? What if you start your day with just focusing on caring and compassion and gratitude? Are you not just going to refocus your reticular activating system and find yourself more things to be grateful about, more joyful about, happy about? And if your day goes sideways, life is life, work is work, career is career, family is family, kids are kids, and parents get older. If your day goes sideways, reset yourself. It's 3-2-1 reset, not 3-2-1 do it once and your life is rainbows and unicorns. Do it over and over and over again. There's no terrible side effects, no bad side effects to resetting your nervous system and turning off the stress response. And there's no bad side effects to making yourself feel better.
Yeah.
So, no one ever, I was going to say no one ever got addicted to hypnotherapy, but I was just going to say, it's that idea. It's like nothing, if you're focusing on gratitude and love and joy and happiness, why wouldn't you do that 20 times a day? And you can do it as you're falling asleep. We mentioned before about the ruminating. Okay, you're tired, you have decision fatigue. What if as you're sensing that ruminating about the speech that's coming up or the thing that happened a while ago, what if you're just to hack your system, force your system to turn off the stress response by thinking of somebody you care for? That's more powerful than you got to give next month. Yeah. For that person you care for, that you think you want to think about. And even if it's a spiritual figure, it doesn't matter if it's the archangel Michael or something, doesn't matter. Focus on what you like to focus on. That's going to make you feel better. And so those are, one, do it any time of day and night, mornings, right before you fall asleep, but, also during the day. Again, either that 3-2-1 reset or heart coherence, or merge them together like we did. But even if it's just one thing, what about that deep breathing and the humming?
Yeah, the humming.
And one more time. That in and of itself will be extraordinary in resetting your nervous system and adding in the hug, let alone thinking of somebody you want to give a hug to.
Yeah.
Pretty powerful. And it's, again, little kids can do that. Right? You can teach your friends how to do this afternoon. That's how powerful this stuff is. It's not hard. That's
No.
what's so amazing about it, but also somewhat frustrating. Because while maybe, okay, it's not easy to do this deep healing work, it can be kind of simple, if that makes sense. And when you realize that, you're like, wow, I could have done this 10 years ago. Like, well, you might have been ready 10 years ago.
Yeah, exactly.
Healing happens in an instant, but maybe there's some setup or some more learning or something going on.
Right.
So this isn't to like give you ammunition to beat yourself up with.
Exactly.
You heal when you need to heal. And sometimes there's some learning and some setup. Sometimes that's 70 years for whatever reason.
Yeah.
But you can heal in an instant. And when it's time for you to do so, you can do it. And while, again, maybe healing deep trauma isn't easy, it can be simple. Again, I don't know if that's a somatic thing.
No, you're right. You're right. And those, I call them like my aha moments, and where there's just that connection, and I am like, okay, I get it. And I can take myself in a different direction. Those are awesome.
Yeah. And the thing is this, it's not faking yourself out, because again, it's like, well, you're pretending, so it's not real, or you're just making it up, or, you're only imagining. It's like, yeah, that's how.
But your brain doesn't know that.
Yeah. Aren't you doing that anyway? That hurt and pain happened 50 years ago.
True.
Aren't you just imagining and keeping yourself in this hypnotic trance state of hurt and pain? And so we're really not doing anything you're not doing already. We're just doing it on purpose. Sort of like what Dr. Irving says. This is a non-deceptive placebo. We're not tricking you into it. We're doing it because it's time and you want to. And again, we're not doing anything you're not doing already. If you get excited or upset or crying at a movie, yeah, you can do that. If you ever got bored back in high school math class, you can do this work. We're not doing anything you're not doing already.
Right.
So we're just doing it on purpose and with your intention to heal.
Right. So you're doing it in a healthy way instead of an unhealthy way, really.
And that's what becomes empowering.
Right.
It's like you're doing it because you want to, therefore do it. I mean, this has been, but it can be that simple.
I agree. I totally agree. It sounds like it's big, but you're right. It can be that simple. And this has been fascinating because I knew some about hypnosis and that, and I know it to be a modality. It's not that I haven't wanted to do it. I just didn't understand it enough to now, under the right circumstances, of course, I totally understand it. It makes complete sense.
Yeah. And I think a lot of people are really understanding, especially in the athletic realm.
Yeah.
About how, we know how to get the body to peak physical potential.
Right.
So when gold medals are won by 100th of a second, it's really coming down to mind. Everybody probably remembers Michael, who's the swimmer? Michael.
Shoot. As soon as you said that, yeah, I know who you're talking about.
I want to say Michael Phelps. Michael Phelps.
Yes, there you go.
And, Michael Phelps. So you're doing a swimming event. You get up on your little diving platform to starting platform, and you look over, and Michael Phelps is next to you. What's that do to your confidence?
Oh yeah.
To have you come in fourth place, and and what's Michael Phelps thinking? Oh my God, I'm older and my shoulder's starting to hurt. And oh, look at this young guy. I know he won the world championship. Oh my God. Is that enough for Michael Phelps to come in fourth? Even though he's, what is he got? 28 gold medals or something ridiculous? Yeah,
it's outrageous what he's got.
And so it's really just watching and becoming aware. Just that constant, and that's kind of the deal is with healing work and that joy and the happiness. There's a certain relentlessness to this work. Mm-hmm. Just like you don't get to go to a personal trainer and work out at the gym twice, and now you're just superhero body, Marvel movie ripped for the rest of your life. You're working out every day. We know this for our physical health. It's what you eat, it's what you drink, it's how you're working out, it's how you're exercising. It's relentless. You don't stop. You just keep doing it. But what about your emotional health and your mental health?
Right.
The Dalai Lama still meditates every day. The man is 90 years old. And, read his books. He talks about the anger and the sorrow and despair of what's going on in Tibet. Yeah. The Chinese government is still, arresting his monks, torturing his monks, bulldozing down his monasteries to build roads and buildings, and probably primarily to give him the middle finger. But he doesn't want that to be, he doesn't want to be the anger. He doesn't want to be the sorrow.
Yeah.
He's going to feel that because it's a human being. And these are extraordinary situations, not just in Tibet, but the rest of the world. And so every day he practices loving kindness and compassion. That's who he wants to be. He doesn't want to be the anger. He's going to feel it because it's appropriate. There is time for anger and despair and grief. But he doesn't want that to be who he is. So every day, at 90 years old still, he practices loving kindness and compassion. And you would think that if anybody was to have it down by now, you think it'd be that guy.
Yeah.
Well, he doesn't have a lot of the challenges most of us have. He's not married. He doesn't have any kids. He has a staff of people throughout his whole life, since he was about 5 years old, to meet his every want and need. And granted, he has great responsibility, but he doesn't have a lot of the challenges the rest of us have.
Yeah.
And yet every day he's there practicing. Bruce Lee was practicing martial arts the day before he died. A lot of your listeners, Lisa, maybe you too, remember Jack LaLanne.
Mm-hmm. Oh, yeah.
He had the Jack LaLanne gym, and he had the juicer, and he was on the Merv Griffin show. And
he was amazing.
And he'd do those things where on his birthday, he'd pull those boats behind him, swimming across the lake with people in them, the rowboats. That guy was working out the day before he died at the age of 96. It's relentless.
It's a practice. It's part of your lifestyle.
Yeah. Yo-Yo Ma still practices the cello every day. The guy's masterful. If anybody was to kick back and just play Mozart at Carnegie Hall and phone it in, you could point to that guy, but he practices every day. So if you want the joy, the happiness, the confidence, the abundance, the success, the gratitude, whatever it is you're looking for, you can have it. Mm-hmm. There's a certain relentlessness to this work. And certainly all these therapies you talk about on your show are extraordinary, including talk therapy. And again, I apologize if I don't mean to throw them under the bus or put them on.
No, blast. I say the same thing. I say the same thing all the time.
It's an extraordinarily healing work. And I think everybody should have a coach with whatever they're doing, that second pair of eyes. But there's a relentlessness to this. Just because you heal the trauma doesn't mean all of a sudden your every cell of your body is filled with joy and happiness. Maybe it will be, but if it's not, you need to practice.
Yeah.
And even if you have to pretend, I don't know what it is to be joyful. I had a horrible, childhood. I don't know what it is to be happy. Okay. Mm-hmm. What about pretending? Can you pretend that you're happy? Mm-hmm. Was there ever an incident like maybe your grandmother took you out to lunch, or your friend's family took you to Disneyland or something?
Yeah.
Anytime you felt happy, okay, let's lock into that.
Yeah.
Or what would you think happiness would feel like?
What do you want it to feel like, right?
Yeah. Yeah. What do you want it to feel like? Pretend you're pretending, And again, it's just like, it can be that simple. And again, I don't know if that's easy, but it can be that simple.
I agree.
Yeah.
Oh, Craig, this has been so good. I have truly a whole new understanding of this. I mean, like I said, I had an understanding before, but this is so much deeper, and I love it. And I think it is a great modality. You and I may be talking down the road, seriously, because I'm open to it. And, it is a journey, and I feel like, we don't cross that finish line until we take our last breath, and, but we can learn to manage ourselves and do all this and make our lives joyful and easier. That it can happen. It doesn't matter what age you're at. You can reach that. I mean, you had a 70-something-year-old woman that her life has changed.
Yeah. Yeah. And this isn't like kind of toot my own horn, but it's just to show you who can use these techniques. A month ago or so, I worked with a 9-year-old who had struggled with 2 years of chronic nightmares, to the fact that each parent had to take a turn sleeping with him in bed for 2 years, done the talk therapy, done the things, this, that, the other thing. And she was getting a massage. I work at the massage and wellness clinic my wife runs. And she was getting a massage, and just he had this extraordinary nightmare. Again, 2 years of this, almost every night, he's having a screaming nightmare. and we have to sleep with him. I can't even sleep with my husband. My husband can't sleep with him because one of us is always in bed with him. And my wife was doing him, so I was like, well, why don't you go see Craig? I bet he could, the hypnotherapy can help. And so brought in this kid. Mom was in the room. 45 minutes, bing, bang, boom, we're done. Hasn't had nightmares since.
Oh, what a relief.
And again, it's not that I'm doing the work, but it's like we're training the child. And he was a Star Wars fan, so we used the imagery and the mythology of Star Wars, and a lot of that things, and put, he liked the Mandalorian TV show, and just kind of an example of how this works, especially with children. Children are great imaginations.
Oh yeah.
So I want you pretend that if people know that show, they know that Baby Yoda put this force field around him, like a ball-shaped force field. Okay, pretend you're doing that with Baby Yoda right in front of you, and now put Mandalorians on each side of your bed, above and below. And now let's run those nightmares. Have the ghouls and the monsters come at you and see what happens to them. Watch them get evaporated and dissipated. Watch the Mandalorians not even allow them to come close to you. And now run I forget, there was like different things. There was like monsters and aliens and all sorts. Like, let's run every scenario over and over and over again. And now let's run every one of them at the same time and watch what happens to them with those Mandalorians and that force field that's going to evaporate them. And I want to make sure that you're not done until all this is installed, complete, absolute, and permanent within your subconscious mind. And when you're done, open your eyes and walk out the door. Wait. Opens their eyes. Well, what do you do? I told you, if you're done, you're not leaving here until it's all healed. So if it's done, open up the door and walk out. You open up the door and walk out.
Oh my God.
That's hypnosis. Like walking, I was talking to him in the lobby. I say, here's what we're going to do. And you're not going to walk out that door. You're not going to open up the door until it is healed. We don't leave here until this is done. He said, okay. And so we got to the office door. I had to close my office door and say, I want to make sure. I don't like letting people in here unless they're willing to do the work. And so if you're ready to be done with this, only if you're ready to be done with this, open up the door and choose which seat you need to sit in. And so he opens up the door, walks in. There's 3 different seats, desk chair. There's the recliner, a regular kind of comfy chair. It's like, one of these chairs is the chair you need to sit on to heal this completely now. Which chair are you using? He picks the chair. And so this is all hypnosis. His eyes are open. We're having a conversation, but it's all healing hypnosis.
I was going to say, you're empowering him as well.
Yeah. And influencing him to do that, just like a commercial. And now let's close your eyes and do these visual exercises all the time with the empowering language for him, knowing that he's not going to leave the room until it's done. And, language like, I don't know if this is going to take you 10 minutes, 30 minutes, or 60 minutes, but you're not going to leave the room until it's done. I know this because you're the one who opened the door and sat in that chair. It's all empowering. Yeah. I don't know if it's going to take you 10 minutes, 30 minutes, or 60 minutes, meaning it's one of those 3. Choose which one. If you want to get out of here early, let's make it 10 minutes. If you want, you feel it's going to take you some time, let's do 60 minutes. I don't care. And so that was a 9-year-old. I worked with a 77-year-old about a month ago. Same kind of thing. I mean, I wasn't using Mandalorians and Baby Yoda and things like that, but it's also like she, it was feeling it, where you feel in your body, where you feel that hurt and that pain. And all she wrote to me was anxiety. 77-year-old woman wanted to deal with anxiety. And some people on their intake forms, they'll write, 7 paragraphs of detailed information about everything to them. Other times it's just one word, anxiety. Fine, we'll work on anxiety. You know what you need to work on. And that's just a focal point, the anxiety. You know what that means. And so we'll work on anxiety. Where do you feel in your body? I feel it all in my head. What color is it? It's red, because we want to disassociate from it. What does it feel like? It feels heavy. It feels rough. It feels smooth. It's big. It's small. What does it look like? It feel like 0 to 10. Where is it? 0 being the most peaceful, 10 being the most anxious you ever felt. It's a 10. All right. Now we know what you're dealing with it. And you've disassociated from it to the point where now you can take it out.
Yeah.
And just take it out. I want you to reach out with your hands like you're a surgeon and pull out all that red negativity. And sometimes I have people pull for 10, 15 minutes before, this pulling and pulling.
Wow.
And pulling. 10, 15 minutes. And one of the things I asked her, I was like, because I didn't know much, I was like, well, just to get a little more information, when did you notice you were struggling with this anxiety? She said 19. She's now 77. She said since 19 years old, she's struggling with anxiety. I did not ask her what happened at 19, nor did she volunteer the information. I said, okay, this anxiety you've been struggling with since you were 19. She pulled and pulled and pulled for 48 minutes.
Oh my goodness. Bless her heart. She had 60 years of stuff.
And like I said, sometimes it's 10 minutes, 15 minutes. That's usually the average. She pulled for 48 minutes.
Oh my God.
And when she pulled, finally she just like opened her eyes and said, it's done. I'm like, oh, okay.
Wow.
Like we had a little part 2. Okay, well, like now that you've pulled out all that stuff, nature pours a vacuum. Let's fill yourself up. What do you want? Joy, happiness. What color is that? Fill in that empty space with that color green.
Yeah.
And so we did a part 2, but that's a lot of like, she okay? Is she doing all right? It's like, keep doing it, keep pulling. You're doing it perfectly. It's a lot of encouraging but you pulled and pulled and pulled.
She's got to be a new woman.
I found out later because we did a second session. That was first session. We did a second session, and it was something that happened when she was like 6. It's just the anxiety started when she was 19.
Oh.
And so we started working on healing the issue of what happened when she was 6, and it's like, 2, 3 sessions.
Bless her heart that she suffered for that long.
Yeah, and so whether you're 9 years old, you're 77 years old, you can do this work somewhere in between.
Yeah.
Child, teenager, adult, retirement.
No matter what walk of life you're in.
Yeah.
Well, Craig, this has been really fascinating, seriously, and so good. And
I appreciate you letting me go on and on and on.
It was all fascinating, though. You weren't going on. It was all so fascinating for me, and I know for the listeners.
Yeah. Well, if you're listening and you're here with us, thank you for sticking with it, and especially those exercises. We'll do something on the show notes where you can have access to that. I have some recordings and things that people can download.
Yeah. That's what
information. She'll get it to you somehow.
Yeah, I was going to say that this is the segue where I could ask you, how would the listeners reach out to you if they wanted to contact you?
Well, best way, my name's Craig Meriwether. I live in Flagstaff, Arizona. The name of my practice is Arizona Integrative Hypnotherapy. I know that's a mouthful, but if you're just to Google search Flagstaff Hypnosis, you'll see Arizona Integrative Hypnotherapy pop up. Also, I have a test anxiety course that's a little easier to remember. And it's just a video course, but for, whether you're high school or you're 65 taking the real estate exam, it's called aceanytest.com. And that's a little easier to remember. So you can email me from either place.
Great. And then I have one last question I always ask my guests, and that is, what do you want to leave our listeners with? You already left them with a whole bunch of great information.
How much time do you have? I probably the most important thing that I like to tell people when giving that one thing is, what you practice, you get better at. And that's, of course, we know that from playing piano or learning judo or taekwondo and getting a black belt in taekwondo, or learning dance or learning to walk as a child. What you practice, you get better at. Well, what if you're practicing anxiety? What if you're practicing fear?
Yeah.
Are you, from talking about how to wire the brain, even just by pretending, are you wiring that into your system to the point where when you're getting to your 30s and 40s and 60s and 80s, that it's just becoming an automatic habit to feel that fear and that anxiety? What's extraordinary is you can change that. And yes, there is some work to be done there. And there is some practice. There's, like I said before, we were talking about, there's a certain relentlessness to this, whether it's your physical health, but also your mental and emotional health. So yeah, there's a certain relentlessness to this, but what if you just spent 5 minutes a day just pretending you were happy?
Just start there.
Yeah. What's that going to do to rewire your brain?
Yeah.
Honestly, it could be that simple.
Seriously.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, thank you, Craig, so much for being here. Thank you for sharing. Seriously, it was really interesting. I have a whole new respect for hypnosis now, and hypnotherapy and what it can do to help us. It makes so much sense. And I love how simple it is and yet profound.
Yeah.
That's what's so awesome.
Well, thank you, Lisa. I really appreciate all your time. I know we've talked for a while, and I appreciate all the listeners sticking with it.
Yeah. Well, it's been great.
Yeah. Thank you. Well, anytime, let me know. Well, I'll come back and talk for another 2 hours.
Seriously, it's fascinating.
Yeah, yeah. It
Well,
is.
thank
That's
you.
why I can talk about it all day because it's, mind healing the body is extraordinary. It's extraordinary
Yeah.
how powerful we are, all of us, every single
And
one of us.
and it's, for me as a survivor, what is so cool about all this stuff is it's really empowering, because the thing that us survivors dealt with for so long is just feeling so helpless,
Yeah, nothing.
hopeless. Things are out of our control, and this is empowering. And anything that I can give to the listeners that's going to help them empower, even doing these little exercises, hugely empowering.
Amazing. Yeah, and simple, easy, little exercises that will literally hack your brain and change your brain chemistry. It's extraordinary. This is how powerful you are. You can do this just right now, any time of day and night.
Yeah,
change your brain
anywhere
chemistry.
you're at, even. And I talk about it a lot on my podcast too. It's the baby steps. The baby steps are what really helps us. And this is a big baby step. I mean, it's a really helpful baby step that could, get you through a really tough moment. And, if you're sleeping better and your days are better because you're doing this, awesome.
Yeah, imagine just in terms of taking off the armor and the heavy coat and sleeping better. What's that going to do for you? Imagine just doing one of these exercises or both of them or whatever, just for 5 minutes twice a day for a week.
Yep.
Imagine how amazing your life's going to be.
Exactly. Just try it. Just try it. Just do it. And you have nothing to lose. You have absolutely nothing to lose by doing it.
Yeah.
So, well, thank you again. And I know our listeners got a lot of great information and got some great tools that'll help them get through the day.